Have you ever seen a cake so light and bouncy that it jiggles like a cloud on a plate? Imagine slicing into it and instead of a heavy bite, you're met with a melt-in-your-mouth texture that feels like eating a sweet, fluffy breeze. That's the magic of the famous Japanese Jiggly cake, sometimes called the cotton cheesecake or wobbly sponge cake. Videos of this dessert have gone viral online for years, showing bakers pulling huge golden cakes straight from the oven and giving them a gentle shake to reveal their hypnotic wobble. But beyond the viral moment lies a fascinating story of how this cake came to be, why it became a global obsession, and what really happens inside the bakeries and factories where thousands are baked every single day. Today we're diving deep into that world and uncovering every detail of how this dreamy dessert is born, from farm-fresh ingredients to the final Jiggly masterpiece. The story of the Jiggly cake actually begins in Japan during the 1970s, when pastry chefs were inspired by the rich, creamy cheesecakes of the West but wanted to create something that suited Japanese tastes, which often leaned toward lighter, less sweet desserts. By combining techniques from European soufflés with a cheesecake base, bakers developed a cake that looked indulgent but felt airy and delicate. This balance quickly won over locals, and small bakeries began selling it as a unique treat. Decades later, names like Uncle Rikuro and Pablo transformed the Jiggly cake from a regional delight into an international sensation. Social media played a huge role. Short clips of bakers flipping, tapping, and slicing into giant cakes spread like wildfire, attracting millions of views and sparking long lines of curious customers outside bakeries in Osaka, Tokyo, and eventually across the world. Suddenly, the Jiggly cake wasn't just a dessert. It was an experience, something people wanted to film, share, and remember. But what exactly makes this cake different from a regular sponge or cheesecake? The secret is in the science. Unlike dense cheesecakes made with heavy cream cheese, the Jiggly cake relies on whipped egg whites to create volume and texture. This meringue base traps tiny bubbles of air, which expand in the oven and give the cake its signature bounce. The ingredient list might look simple, just flour, sugar, eggs, milk, and vanilla, but the technique is precise and unforgiving. One mistake in mixing or baking and the cake collapses, losing that iconic wobble. That's why in professional factories, every step is carefully controlled, from the temperature of the eggs to the exact speed of the mixers. Behind that soft jiggle is actually a surprising amount of food science. The journey begins with sourcing the best ingredients. For flour, bakers use a fine, low-gluten variety that ensures the cake won't become chewy or tough. Eggs are the star. Some large bakeries crack hundreds at a time, separating yolks from whites with automated machines that can process dozens per minute. On average, a single large Jiggly cake can require 6 to 10 eggs, and when you think about factories producing hundreds in a day, that's thousands of eggs whisked and whipped before sunrise. Milk adds richness, with some bakeries going through 50 liters in a single batch. Even the sugar matters. Too coarse and it won't dissolve smoothly into the meringue, too fine and the texture changes. Everything must meet strict quality checks, not just for flavor but also for safety. In Japan, food safety standards are among the highest in the world, and bakeries exporting abroad often exceed international requirements. Once the ingredients are ready, it's time to prepare the batter. The yolks are beaten with sugar until they turn pale yellow and ribbon-like, then blended with warm milk and melted butter to form a silky base. Flour is sifted in carefully to avoid clumps, and this mixture becomes the foundation for the cake. Meanwhile, the egg whites are whipped into glossy peaks. In factories, industrial mixers whip up to 50 liters of egg whites at once, spinning at speeds that reach 10,000 revolutions per minute. This high-powered process creates thousands of microscopic bubbles, giving the cake its delicate structure. Timing is crucial. Whip too little and the cake won't rise. Whip too much and it becomes dry and grainy. Experienced bakers often describe this step as listening to the batter. They know it's perfect not just by sight but by sound and texture. The two mixtures, the yolk base and the whipped whites, are then combined in a delicate dance called folding. This is where skill matters most. If folded too roughly, the air bubbles collapse, and the cake loses its lift. If folded too gently, the batter remains uneven, leading to dense spots in the final bake. In factories, specialized machines have been designed to mimic the gentle folding motion of a baker's hand, ensuring consistency across dozens of cakes at a time. Watching the silky batter transform into a smooth, airy cloud is mesmerizing, and it's the exact moment when the Jiggly cake begins to take shape. The next stage is baking, and this is where the magic truly happens. Unlike regular cakes baked at high heat, Jiggly cakes require a low and steady temperature, usually around 320 degrees Fahrenheit, to rise slowly without collapsing. Many bakeries use water baths, placing the cake pans inside larger trays filled with hot water, to create a steamy environment that keeps the cake moist. Imagine rows of large, round pans filled with pale yellow batter, gently steaming inside giant ovens, slowly transforming into golden, fluffy domes. The aroma of vanilla and sugar fills the air, and bakers keep a close eye on every cake, adjusting heat and humidity as needed. Timing is everything. Pull the cake too early and it's raw inside, leave it too long and it dries out. When baked just right, the cakes are removed from the oven with a golden brown top and that iconic, trembling jiggle. Once out of the oven, the cakes aren't just boxed up and shipped. They go through a careful cooling process to avoid collapsing. Some bakeries flip the cakes upside down for a few minutes to stabilize their shape, while others place them on wire racks to let air circulate evenly. In famous shops like Uncle Rikuro, bakers often stamp the cakes with a hot iron, branding them with a smiling logo. This moment has become part of the Jiggly cake experience, with customers lining up to watch the stamping process before rushing to buy a fresh, warm cake. On social media, this branding step is almost as famous as the jiggle itself. The popularity of Jiggly cakes outside Japan is a fascinating story in itself. In the United States, for example, bakeries in major cities like Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco have embraced the trend. People often line up for hours just to get a fresh slice. What's remarkable is how this cake appeals to both traditional dessert lovers and those looking for something new. It's not as sweet as American cheesecakes, making it feel lighter and easier to enjoy. At the same time, it has the visual wow factor that fits perfectly into today's Instagram-driven food culture. In fact, some US bakeries have reported selling thousands of cakes per week, fueled by word of mouth and viral TikTok videos. But beyond the hype, there's also a cultural charm to the Jiggly cake. It reflects a broader Japanese philosophy of food, where simplicity, precision, and playfulness meet. Every wobble is proof of the baker's skill, every airy bite a reminder that dessert doesn't need to be heavy to be satisfying. If you've ever watched a Jiggly Japanese cheesecake bounce like a pillow fresh out of the oven, you know it's not just dessert, it's an experience. Unlike heavy New York-style cheesecake, this treat has a light, cloud-like texture that makes it wobble and dance with the slightest touch. It's become a worldwide sensation, with viral videos capturing its hypnotic jiggle, and bakeries in the United States now racing to keep up with demand. But have you ever wondered how these magical cakes are actually made inside large-scale factories? The process may look simple from the outside, but behind every fluffy bite lies a story of precision, tradition, and science working together in perfect balance. It all starts with the simplest of ingredients: eggs, sugar, flour, milk, and cream cheese. What makes Jiggly cheesecake different from a regular sponge cake is how these ingredients are treated. Eggs play the starring role, and bakers use both the yolks and whites in different ways. Yolks provide richness and color, while the whites are whipped into a glossy foam that gives the cake its signature bounce. Whipping egg whites is like creating tiny air balloons. Each bubble must be stable enough to survive the heat of baking without collapsing. In professional factories, massive mixers spin at carefully calibrated speeds to create the perfect meringue, and workers are trained to judge its readiness just by texture and shine. Too soft and the cake won't rise. Too stiff and it will crack. This delicate stage is what sets the foundation for the cake's famous jiggle. Once the whites are perfectly foamed, they must be folded back into the yolk mixture with extreme care. This isn't just mixing, it's almost like a dance. The motion is slow and deliberate, designed to preserve the air bubbles that give the cake life. One wrong move and hours of preparation could be wasted. This step is so important that many bakeries train staff for months before allowing them to handle it in production. Think of it as the heartbeat of the cheesecake. Without it, there is no jiggle. The batter at this point is silky, light, and almost glowing with trapped air. Next comes pouring the batter into molds. In home kitchens you might see a few pans lined up, but inside a factory the scale is jaw-dropping. Industrial ovens can hold up to 100 molds at once, with each filled to the exact same level for consistency. Workers pour with precision, ensuring that no cake rises unevenly. The molds are typically round, giving the cakes that signature dome shape. What's fascinating is that the batter looks ordinary as it goes in, but once exposed to heat, something magical happens. The baking process is slow and steady, set at around 302 degrees Fahrenheit, much lower than the blazing heat used for most cakes. The lower temperature allows the mixture to rise gently without burning. Over the course of an hour, the cakes slowly puff up, filling the molds with their fluffy structure. Unlike other cakes that can collapse in the oven, the Jiggly cheesecake holds its shape thanks to the careful folding and whipping that trapped air inside. You can almost imagine the aroma filling the factory. Warm cream cheese, sugar, and vanilla blending into a fragrance that makes everyone nearby crave a bite. When the cakes finally emerge from the oven, they are golden brown on top, puffy like balloons and incredibly soft. But here's the secret, they don't stay that tall forever. As they cool, they gently shrink, creating the signature jiggle that made them famous. Factories often place them on cooling racks, where fans circulate air to stabilize their texture. Workers handle them delicately, almost like newborns, because even a rough touch can mar the smooth surface. This moment, the fresh cake wobbling on a tray, is the climax of the entire process. Videos of this stage have racked up millions of views online, as people can't resist the satisfying sight of the cheesecake bouncing to life. But the process isn't finished yet. Before packaging, many factories stamp the cakes with their logo or a traditional mark, branding them with authenticity. This small detail adds a touch of artistry and lets customers know they're enjoying the real deal. Once marked, the cakes are placed into custom-designed boxes that protect them during shipping. The packaging is just as important as the cake itself, as Jiggly cheesecakes are notoriously fragile. Any sudden shake or rough transport could ruin that soft, fluffy structure. High-end bakeries in the US often invest in elegant boxes that not only protect the product but also turn it into a premium gift item. Behind the scenes, food safety and quality control teams are constantly monitoring production. Every batch is inspected for texture, appearance, and flavor. If a cake doesn't jiggle correctly, it doesn't pass. This may sound extreme, but consistency is what keeps customers coming back. Large factories can produce thousands of Jiggly cakes each day, but not a single one leaves without meeting strict standards. For American audiences used to mass-produce desserts, this attention to detail feels refreshing, almost like artistry on an industrial scale. Of course, there's a larger story beyond just the cake itself. Food production at this scale consumes energy, water, and raw materials. The environmental footprint of baking thousands of cheesecakes a day is not small. The ovens require constant power, the mixers run for hours, and packaging materials can add up quickly. But here's where the industry is evolving. Many modern factories, especially in Japan and the US, are adopting eco-friendly practices. Solar panels now power parts of production lines, and recycling systems capture and reuse water from cleaning processes. Packaging is increasingly shifting toward biodegradable materials that reduce waste. It's a fascinating reminder that even in the world of sweets, sustainability is becoming part of the recipe. For consumers, knowing this adds an extra layer of satisfaction. When you enjoy a slice of Jiggly cheesecake, you're not just tasting a dessert, you're tasting the result of years of culinary evolution, precision engineering, and even environmental responsibility. It makes each bite a little more meaningful. And if you've ever stood in line at a bakery watching staff pull these cakes from the oven, you know that the joy spreads quickly. Customers pull out their phones to record the bounce, children laugh as the cakes wobble, and adults marvel at how something so simple can be so mesmerizing. The rise of Jiggly cheesecake in the United States is a story in itself. Social media fueled the craze, with viral TikToks and YouTube videos drawing millions of views. American bakeries quickly caught on, adapting the Japanese recipe for local tastes. Today you can find versions of the cake in Los Angeles, New York, Houston, and beyond, with lines wrapping around city blocks. Some bakeries even offer flavored variations, matcha, chocolate, or strawberry, giving the traditional recipe a modern American twist. What started as a regional specialty has now become a global phenomenon, uniting cultures through the universal language of dessert. So next time you see one of these cakes, don't just think of it as a sweet treat. Think of the farmers who produced the eggs and dairy, the engineers who designed ovens to bake them perfectly, the bakers who trained for months to master the folding technique, and the marketers who shared its jiggle with the world. It's a collaboration of science, artistry, and culture baked into every slice. And of course, it's also a reminder that sometimes food doesn't just fill your stomach, it can make you smile, mesmerize you, and even go viral online. As we close this journey into the factory world of Jiggly cheesecakes, remember that behind every bounce is a story of patience, precision, and passion. From the careful whipping of egg whites to the gentle folding of batter, from the slow rise in the oven to the satisfying wobble on the cooling rack, every step matters. And while we enjoy these treats for their flavor and fun, it's worth appreciating the craftsmanship and care that make them possible. If this behind-the-scenes glimpse has made you hungry for more, stay tuned. There are countless other factory secrets waiting to be discovered. Until then, the next time you take a bite of fluffy, Jiggly cheesecake, know that you're not just eating dessert, you're experiencing a culinary performance that's taken the world by storm.